All right, so I'd like to call to order the City of Woodburn's Council Work Session for August 31st, 2020. Please join me for the flag salute. Under God, indivisible.
Indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we have the roll call, please.
Councillor Cabrales,
Here.
Councillor Ellsworth,
Here.
Councillor Carney,
Here.
Councillor Schaub,
Here.
Councillor Cornwell,
Here.
Councillor Morris,
I'm here.
Mayor Swenson.
Here. All right, this is a work session, and we just have two items. And we're going to start with the utility services ordinance.
Mayor.
Yep.
Mayor Swenson, I have a motion I'd like to make, please. I'd like to move that the Woodburn City Council conduct a vote via no confidence for Mayor Eric Swenson.
Second.
All right, we have a discussion.
Mr. Mayor,
Can
Do we
you
have a
explain to
second?
me what that means?
Yeah, do we have a second?
yeah, I
Councilor
second
Morris
that.
second that.
I have a brief presentation if I can get the moderator to turn over the presentator mode to me, just to walk through some discussion or some information ahead of the discussion. What is it saying? Oh, sorry. The GoToMeeting is affecting my accessibility functions within the meeting. So stand by 1 second while I try to share my screen, which it might not be going to let me do. Accessibility features include, yeah, okay, not now. Sorry about that. So this is not going to let me use it's not going to let me share the screen because of the accessibility features for low vision. So what I can do is I can email this to Heather real quick and she can share it with everybody. Essentially what I've done is created a timeline that we can discuss around the issues of a no confidence vote. So if you'll bear with me for just a sec, I apologize. I didn't think that this was going to cause a problem based on accessibility features.
So while you're waiting, I just want to be clear. We have a motion on the floor, which is to have a discussion regarding a no confidence vote, specifically referring to Mayor Eric Swenson. Sharon, you're muted.
Correct.
Okay, very good. Now I understand. And Councilor Morris is going to have a presentation of sorts shortly. Very good.
We did get a second on the motion. I'm having to call in. I'm working on this brief as we speak. So did we get a second on the motion?
Eric Morris.
We got a second.
Thank you. Thank you.
Debbie said she did not understand what a motion of no confidence was, and I'm wondering if you can explain that, Sharon, since you made the move. Yeah. Because I just went to Wikipedia. That's how I figured it out.
I know you asked Sharon to explain it, but perhaps Bob Shields can explain it for us from a legal perspective.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. I mean, this is not really, strictly speaking, I mean, this is a issue. First of all, I mean, this is first we've heard of this issue, but on the other hand, in terms of the motion, I think it's if it were to be considered, it would be whether the council as a whole has confidence, just the way it sounds. I mean, it's not really a legal question. It's more of a comment on the mayor's leadership ability, I guess. I mean, it's Sharon's motion. She may want to explain that further, but I don't see it as a legal question. It just isn't one. It's more of a comment generally on the leadership of the mayor.
Heather, you should have that now. I pushed you 2 copies for some reason, but that PowerPoint should be,
I've got it. I just need to save it over to this other computer. real quick.
yeah, my apologize. I should have thought that this was going to jack me up, but
I would just like to, I'd like to say that after reading all of the documentation and also speaking with Mayor Swenson, I'm totally confused and have lost confidence in what's true and the truth. And so that's why my motion. I want to get this out into discussion so that all of the members of the council have an opportunity to comment and make a vote.
Thank you, Sharon.
Um, all right. So if I do that, they can see.
that shows up just as a small box, Heather. I think you have
Okay.
to show it. I think you have to
All right.
share
Let me
this
try
one.
one other thing.
Councilor Morris, are you going to narrate?
Yeah, sure, I can do that.
Very good. Thank you.
Hold on.
Just-
Is there n-
There we go. That's better.
Hold on a second. We don't have very good, I'm not able to hear this very well.
Eric, are you going to narrate this?
Yeah, I
Or
was waiting.
what-
I was just
somebody
waiting
else?
for I was waiting for Heather to give us a thumbs up or just at least say good to go because I heard somebody. I think the mayor
Oh.
was having a hard time hearing or something. So
Somebody else wanted to talk. I was just curious.
it's just that awkward silence. I can't see anybody on the screen because it's like postage stamp size. So Heather, I don't know if we're good to proceed or not.
We don't have very good sound in this room, and this might be something I want to understand well, so. Just give Heather another second if you wouldn't mind.
Copy that.
Like usually the sound is everywhere. Well, that's fine. I'll listen closely.
Okay.
And now
Thanks,
somebody
Ed.
say something.
Check one. Check. Good. Yes, no.
Okay. I'll pay a lot of attention.
All right.
I feel like it's coming off my computer or something.
Well, I'll come over if I can. Okay. Councilor Morris, please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As the council will recall, on the 21st of August, I sent an email out to the whole council talking about a vote of no confidence based on, as Councilor Schwab said, the recent information we received from the Marion County court case. So as I sat during the day, not only reading the 234-page memo, I sat down and tried to think of the different issues we've had over the past 5 or 6 months with actions that the mayor's been taking. So I sat down and like as usual, PowerPoint is not my strong suit, but for this kind of a presentation, it seems to work well for providing information and a recap of kind of where I could remember things kind of going off the rails, and we'll just walk through this. This is, I think it's 25 slides total. If it takes us more than 10 minutes, I'll be disappointed. So Heather, if you could advance it one slide. So this is the city charter, and I'm not going to read the city charter to you because I'm assuming that everybody on the council has read the city charter. I don't expect you to be an expert on it. I am not an expert on it. It's always easier to go back and look at the document like this when you have context for it. And so I went into the city charter and pulled out this section, which are the duties of the mayor. And I highlighted the duties, and Heather, if you could advance it one slide. I pulled out the duties that are really applicable to the things we're going to be talking about. So the mayor shall be recognized as the official head of the city for all ceremonial purposes. The mayor shall appoint members of boards. The mayor shall from time to time communicate to the council, that's us, and the mayor shall establish cooperative arrangements to interact between the council, us, and the city administrator. But in this document, the city administrator is referred to as administrator. So those are the big four, I think it's 4 key components from the city charter, just as a preface to having this discussion. Heather, if you could advance this slide. So some other excerpts from the document from the city charter, and you guys can find it online if you want to grab it off the city's webpage. It's a fascinating document to read. There's only a couple things that I pulled out of here that are going to be relevant to the conversation. We're talking about powers and duty of the city administrator, and that includes purchasing, buying stuff, doing contracts, and a lot of those contracts come to us to say, hey, it's okay for the city administrator to enter into agreement X, Y, and Z. That's the powers, and it's talked about in this document, this excerpt from it, including not only purchasing, but also supervising department and department heads. So that's all resting with the city administrator. Interference in the administration, I'll just leave that there for right now. Heather, can you advance it one slide? So in the beginning, which as we can all hopefully recall, and COVID definitely makes it hard to recall exact, I mean, everything seems like it's been forever and just a minute ago since we've been in COVID. But as you guys will recall, back in April, and the timelines are all listed out here, and I don't believe a good PowerPoint presentation is me reading the PowerPoint presentation to you, so I'll give you a high level of it. Back in April, Marion County came to us and said, hey, North Marion County is an epicenter. And we all went, oh my gosh, what are you talking about? And so from those interactions, we found out that the mayor had been meeting with Marion County, talking to the head of Marion County Public Health, and having all these discussions that really never came to us, and we didn't know anything about it. Heather, if you could advance it one slide. And so that's the pandemic, start of the pandemic. So we have several different things I'm going to step through, and then we can definitely have some longer conversations about it. But I want everybody to have a chance to look at this as we go through. So events in Woodburn, we've had a couple significant events in Woodburn, including the Black Lives Matter protest, which, as you guys have all read in the after action reports, the mayor was a big part of and did not involve staff until after staff already knew about it, when it was a pretty significant event within the city that seems like they should have had that conversation ahead of time. And then also this Father's Day parade was also in the after action reports. That sounds like it was a pretty major tie up, twist up of whatever was going on, of the mayor directing staff and EMS personnel throughout the city. Heather, if you can advance it one. So the Super 8 Hotel, here's the timeline that I put together from the information that I was able to mine out of all the emails and rough it out from the city council's point of view. So June 17th, we started getting all the emails and phone calls from Scott. The 22nd, I put up on the web, basically released it out to the media, or released it out to the community saying, hey, Marion County's doing this, and 35,000 people ended up seeing that and reacting to it. The next, or 2 days later, the county signs the contract. The city council, we approved the legal case on the 25th. And then there was a protest at the hotel on the 25th, which the mayor was out there attending. On the 25th, they, what are we talking about? I'm trying to remember everything that I wrote in here. And then the 29th, okay. So the 25th and the 29th, we all received emails from staff saying, hey, turn over all your documents related to this case. Because Bob was putting together this massive case against Marion County to say, hey, we don't want the COVID isolation center in Woodburn. And then July 9th, Bob filed the lawsuit. July 13th council meeting, you guys will all remember that. That's almost set a record for length of time. We almost got to, I think it was almost midnight. And in that meeting at the very end, which may be hard to remember, I asked the mayor, I said, hey, what's your involvement with this? Because we'd heard lots of chatter about the COVID isolation center. And some of that chatter was that Marion County was saying, hey, you guys knew about this ahead of time. Your mayor's been involved in this all along. So I asked the mayor about it. And the mayor talked about a homeless person and a voucher, and that was pretty much the role that he had in that. And so by the end of July, we'd racked up about $12,500 and some odd dollars worth of estimated legal costs so far. Heather, if you could advance to the slide. So this month, we get Marion County's filings, and I'll let you guys read through this because you guys have probably already read it already, but in those documents, it showed that the hotel owner had a conversation with Mayor Swenson back in April, and then emailed Mayor Swenson to a private Gmail account. And then on the 27th at one of these North Marion County Action Team meetings, Marion County basically said, hey, we've got the notes right here. The mayor said the hotel's reserved, the third floor is reserved, and here we go. Heather, if you could advance it one slide. So then August 23rd, I posted up a recap of what we just talked about here in this memo, or in the previous slide. I posted that up on social media because the community wants to know what's going on. And believe it or not, I've told several people recently that the community at large is not stupid. They'll figure this stuff out pretty quickly. So I just put up the facts of what Marion County put up. And then on the 26th, Mayor Swenson posted this social media response, which you can see outlined there, telling a version of what we've kind of talked about, but a little different, reacting to some of the things that the county had already posted, and posted up that he could be reached at his city email address. Then promptly the next day or that evening, it was taken down off the web. So Heather, can you advance it? So on the same day that we got, or like the next day after we received the documents from Marion County, we received an email from the city administrator saying, hey, there may be a little bit of a dust up over this incident with the Metropolis, involving the Metropolis building, which, as I think many of you know, the city owned for a very long time, that ultimately sold that. And we hold that a banknote for that property currently. But the mayor is involved in some sort of a real estate walkthrough of the building with city staff, and the building manager, not the building owner, but the building manager, was really unhappy about that. And we saw the emails going back and forth. It sounds like it's all patched up now, but that was just one of the most recent things that was on the list there. And I believe, Heather, if you move forward, I think is the different emails that are referenced back out through the document. And I can definitely, discussion. Yes, I put that in there. So that's my short and sweet little presentation of the things. And I'll definitely hold my comments till I've heard from other city councilors.
All right, well, I'm going to call upon my braver and better angels in my response to this. that without really the benefit of, we're trying to print it out so I can look at it, but hopefully I've took enough notes to do that. Oh, okay, so I'll start with my response and then Heather can print this out. So we can talk about that. So, and I'll start with, I appreciate that, I appreciate the chance to talk about these things. And I appreciate the, and from the beginning, and I've communicated this with a number of people, when Councillor Morris asked that we put this on the agenda for September, which would have been my assumption, that yes, right, yes, put this on the agenda. I am more than happy to talk about it. And maybe more than happy. I don't know how much time we want to take with this, but we'll kind of see where it goes. A vote of no confidence, I think, is something that I Googled after Councillor Morris asked this be placed on the agenda, and found numerous examples, well, not numerous, but some examples of votes of no confidence. So overall, I would, as I go through this, I mean, I think the question to our councillors is, does what Councillor Morris here present enough for a vote of no confidence for the last 1 year and 10 months of being mayor here, right? So let me just go back to the first comments I was going through, that that the statement, it would appear that the mayor's not passing relevant information on to city staff. So my answer to that is that every meeting I was at with in any of this, city staff were present. I believe all the meetings that happened with the ones that I called at the beginning to bring people together, the meetings that I attended. I mean, some were phone meetings, but my understanding was that we had city staff at each one of those meetings. So not passing, and so I wouldn't have assumed that it was my responsibility to take notes and pass on information to those. We and I can go back and look at the minutes of the things, but in our council reports, I believe thank you. I believe I stated that I went to I attended the meetings that. So give me a second as I can match my notes to the presentation. That would have been nice to see ahead of time. So, okay, I'm caught up. So I would say that if there's any meeting that was pertinent or relevant information, that city staff were present, and I wouldn't have assumed that I was passing information along from those meetings. I would like to address the protest. There was a police report, I mean, or an end result, or what do we call those? Follow-ups to that had this statement. So Mayor Swenson had the previous day learned of the event after communicating with organizers and did not notify city staff until the next day, only after it had been made clear the event was now public knowledge. And so I got a phone call, I believe at 7 o'clock in the evening, from the two students that were wanting to coordinate it. The first thing I said to them was that I'm going to be emailing our city administrator and our police chief to let them know, and they will be in contact with you. The next morning, I emailed administrator and the police chief. Now, you can check the time on the email, and I think Mr. Morris has all my personal emails related to any of this, and he can go through those. But that's what happened there. So I spoke to the city administrator about that. I said, hey, like, this comments in this report, right? And that's like concerning to me. And the discussion there was like, well, whatever, we do post-incident reports for the Fiesta Mexicana and things like that. And like, this is what I said, do I need to answer back to that? And his advice was like, not to, like, that was a report and it was there. And the next one about this, the mayor continued to communicate messages to the organizer were not aligned with the city staff's efforts. In every conversation I had with the organizers, which were more limited than people might think, it was about where they were going to speak and did they need speakers and a sound system. It was not about that. I directed them back to Andrew Shadron or to whoever was there. Like that was my my conversations with every, and there weren't that many, maybe like 2 or 3 conversations about the logistics of it that would involve myself speaking. So that's my answer to that. The Father's Day parade, and maybe we addressed this earlier, but the Father's Day parade was an event like some that I was not part of planning, that Councilor Schaub and I were like invited to. We showed up at the Walmart parking lot. It wasn't I was so not a part of that I just assumed they had talked to the police department, which was evident because there was 2 police cars there at the time, and that it was coordinated. I didn't know anything about the route. I didn't know about anything. I showed up to like sit in the car and wave. What I'm assuming happened at that time was that we had some incidents in Woodburn because the police officers were unable to lead the event, and so I was handed a map by the Tammy from Country Meadows and said, "Here's the car, like figure it out." So Sharon and I were in the back of the car with my glasses falling and like trying to figure out where to go, right? With a map. We did we got through it. We were in contact by phone with the fire, the person driving the fire truck. Mostly kind of went the right way. One time one of us turned a different way through that part of Senior Estates, came back around. So that was a place where had the police not been called away, I'm assuming like they would have like done what they did with having worked through Country Meadows. So I appreciate that, but that's my answer to that. I think with the next slide that Councillor Morris presented, with the dates there, and maybe this is the time to talk about this. I'll talk about this with the emails at the same time. Well, it's like debate club, right? But you didn't know the debate was coming. I'm not sure if anything to say about the dates that were, other than the community protest was something that yes, like I attended the Black Lives Matter protest. I attended that. I think Councillor Carney was there. The city administrator said he might go down. Like it was a thing that we were there for. So maybe I'll address the emails because that goes into the next spot. The request for emails happened on June 25th, and then email to council requesting emails again before that. So let me then go to the email on the next page. So on April 26th, the email that was a return email from the owner of the hotel. And before I go on, maybe I should stop and Bob, let me ask you a question. Are you there?
I'm here.
Can I see the whole screen? Our city
You
attorney.
want to see the people?
Can you hear me, Mayor?
Yeah. So this is a question. This is why I had called Brenda about 3 o'clock in conversation with another counselor, anticipating this meeting was happening in September, but the counselor thought maybe it'd be good to address it tonight. I said, well, let me call Bob and ask him as if I'm responding to things that are, or this particular piece of the lawsuit, is it appropriate for me to respond to my interpretation of something that's in this lawsuit, or is that something that we should not address?
Well, that's a good question. I've got an echo here. Can you hear me still?
Yep.
Okay. I think that the lawsuit is a lawsuit, but it is a public record also. That's why you've looked at it. Some of the counselors, Counselor Morris, said he's looked at it. So I mean, I'll stop you if you get into something that we shouldn't get into. I've thought about that quite a bit. I also got a question about the documents requested, but as you recall, the documents requested were requested by Heather and requested by Brenda, and they were intended to be requests for documents that would be public documents. So I really don't see an issue with that.
Okay.
If you're in an area, or if somebody, not just you, Mayor, but if somebody's in an area where they shouldn't be, then I will remind the council and you. But otherwise, I think you're okay.
Okay, thank you. And this is something that I believe I've said to nearly everyone here, but so the request for emails was made, and we all understood that our own city emails would be requested like automatically. And I knew, or I thought that I didn't have anything on my personal email that was related to this situation in any way, right? And so when I read this particular return email to me from the hotel owner, it was, and I've said this to you, most of you, like it made me sick, right? It made me sick that that it was there. I read the email in response to the records request, right? So, and I'll clarify just the records request. That's when I saw the email, when I typed in all the code words that were being requested, and it was an unopened email. So after looking at that and reflecting upon it, had I opened that email earlier, had I opened the email like at the time on the day, I would have responded back with this answer, right? Which was the same thing that I've said in public, that I inquired at this hotel about. We had the issue of the day was there was a person who had been in one of our community dinners in Woodburn who thought he might need to be isolated for 14 days. And so I called this hotel and asked if they had that, right? The person's on the other end said, like, yes, in fact, this hotel is in preparations for like reserving one of the floors, right? The third floor for people in that situation, right? So yes, like that's was the that he, and I asked him, I mean, and I let him know that this was not, you know, and here's the thing that that I'm apologizing for. Well, I let him know I was the mayor, right? I said, please respond to my personal email. This is not a city issue. Like this is a person that's working with a nonprofit that would have a voucher for. I said that's what that call was about, right? So, and stop me, Bob, if I'm like making assumptions or like in here, but it would not be surprising to me that the person with the email would want to make that link to the city, right? He just made $2 million, right? So it's not surprising to me that that I got this email back and that he was trying to tie that. So that one was a mistake. I should have said, my name's Eric Swenson and I am working with a group that's trying to find a place, right? I should not have introduced myself as that. Because that, while none of us would have anticipated that phone call becoming part of this, like that did, and that's a thing that I'm apologizing for, making that statement and allowing, in the end, that person to have this link. So all of you, and I think I've mentioned this to you privately, so again, tell me, Bob, you stop me. So when I saw that, the first person I went to was our city attorney and said like, do we need to talk? And I said, well, here's a piece of information that I just found. And I like apologize because I know that our city attorney likes to have every single thing ahead of time. So, and maybe Bob, you can, if you comfortable responding to when I said, do we need to sit down and then like answer this? Like, put me under oath and do we need to respond to that? I don't want to offer your answer if that's not appropriate.
Well, actually, I did a memo on our meeting, and I could certainly share that. I think when I have people, counselors, I often do that. I mean, because we do public business and we talk about it. So I did one, and it's pretty much, you did meet with me on the 25th. I have the date as, at about 3:45 in the conference room. Said that you found the email, that you hadn't opened it. Wanted to know if we should do anything else. You did say you were sorry, and again, I could send you my note here to everybody. I told you that I appreciated you were sorry. It did make our case harder, which it does, because when the pleading says, the response of the county says that basically we did not raise to the court, the city failed to inform the court that you talked to Mr. Patel, who was the Super 8 owner. I mentioned to you that that was a reference to me as city attorney. I took it as such, so that irritated me, but we moved through that, and I said, well, I can't afford to stay irritated because we still have a motion to win, and so we'll do the best we can do, which is what I was doing today and yesterday and for many days. And then again, I think you apologized and said that you understood that my client was the city and not you, and that you hadn't opened the email and was there any further process. And I explained to you, as I did in an email, I think to the whole council, that in summary judgment, pretty much, had I known about that conversation, we would have had a different answer because we would have talked about it. But having not known about that, our deadline to put affidavits in is passed. So as I mentioned to the city administrator and you, Mr. Mayor, and some other people, I believe that our process is such that we're stuck with the record we have. So that's the record I'm working on right as we speak, and that's what we have. I think that's pretty much it. Again, I have a file note partly because I tend to forget stuff, and so I've got that, and I could. And then I showed you a law book at the end, and we started talking about U of O, so which we both went to, I think. So anyway.
Okay, so one other piece, Bob, if I may, is that when you said it was not necessary, but please clarifying that to file a response based on the relevance of this piece of information to the entire lawsuit. Like, we're arguing land use and we're arguing other things, but I don't want to put words in your mouth or.
Well, I think you might be putting words in my mouth there. I said didn't really, and I don't think you mean to. Don't get me wrong, but not that it wasn't necessary. The key is it wasn't possible. I mean, had you told me that you had made that contact, I would have inquired into it. We would have talked about it, and possibly, as some of the other counselors did, we would have then put something into the record. What I'm saying is that when you talked to me on August 25th or whatever, it was too late to do that. So it wasn't really a choice that we had. I mean, the record at that point is the record. We didn't know about the email, and I don't know what the circumstances are. I mean, certainly you do, but we didn't know about it. I didn't have privy to the fact that you talked to that person, and so our chances to put anything into record at that point were gone.
Okay. Well, I've said this to other people, so and again, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe well, I believe the knowledge of the contact I had made with the hotel was something I had mentioned to numerous people, like after it happened, that I had mentioned in different meetings. But I'm going to leave that for this. This is not about that. So so that's my statement on that. And if this is if my not opening an email to my private email is like caused damage or in any way affects the case, of course, like I'm like sickened and chagrined by that and apologize for it. back to the second point, I would just say I have a different memory of that I can speak to clearly and boldly about the May 27th meeting. In this meeting, as I've told, I think almost all of you, that it's a meeting that was talking about places for people to be isolated, right? Which we have said from the beginning that it was a subject that people in our community and throughout the state, throughout the country, like people are looking for places for people to be isolated, whether in a family and it's the teenager who's got it and doesn't want to pass it on to grandma, or the grandma has it, and so it's a thing that's been out there, right? So I'm just telling you all, in my head, I'm in a meeting and people are talking about places that people could be isolated. Well, before people are talking about a central isolation center that has prisoners in a city, right? It's just, that's the conversation I'm hearing. I did mention, and I've mentioned before, that like in that meeting said I had talked to this hotel person and that he had already thought about or already was thinking about putting it together his third floor for that, along with whoever else wanted to stay in the hotel, right? So not related to one isolation center that that was going to house prisoners, right? And I clearly did not ask the county to follow up with the hotel's owner, right? This is something that I mentioned that was out there. And I would just say the county has a very good lawyer, because for them to then say, well, accordingly, that's why they made the referral. I can tell you that I spoke with one of the county commissioners after this had happened, who said that's we knew about this. We knew about the hotels that were available. That's something we were doing. It was not a result of a comment. So maybe, Bob, you should have stopped me before that. But that's had I been deposed with that, that's what I would have said. Okay. Sorry that we're taking so long with this, but the next page I'm looking at is the social media post that Councilor Morris posted on one of our community websites. And basically, I have the same answers I gave. So I posted those things with the same answers I just told all of you, right? And did say that I appreciate the Councilor Morris, who's running the mayor, would want to highlight these pages, two pages in the county's 234-page defense, and I'm more than happy with that, even talk about that. In the morning, I woke up and I thought about Bob, right? I'm not sure if I should be, if I'm speaking in defense of a case that needs to be, that I shouldn't do. So I thought better of that, and because I wanted to speak with Bob before I was going to just post things on social media and what's obviously a campaign back and forth, or will be seen as a campaign back and forth. So that's why I withdrew and that's why I was hesitant to talk about these things tonight. But so far, Bob hasn't stopped me. Okay. The next page of discussion after this. So the mayor takes staff on a walkthrough of property. So I was on Friday got a phone call message from people interested in either buying the coffee shop that's for sale, and or possibly renting space and perhaps even purchasing the Metropolis. So I was able to, I texted this person at about 11:45 and said, are you still going to come to the property at noon? She said, yes. I said, who are you meeting? She said, well, no one. I said, well, I can walk over and talk with you. One of our staff was in the office, and I said, here's what it is. We'll walk over and talk with them. They talked to the coffee shop owner. We walked upstairs, walked through it, less than 5 minutes, walked down, and they wanted to talk about parking. So we walked over to the Pix Theater parking place and had those kind of conversations with people that are interested in that. During that time, the property manager, not the property manager, the manager of the upstairs room, right, texted angrily, right, and said, like, what are you doing what are you doing? And I said, well, this is what we're doing. This is a person, as you might remember, who's I felt afterwards as I saw and talked to him, like he's angry at the city, right? He was a person who had a black eye in our downtown when he hosted a party after our police officers and police department asked him not to, right? So he was like mad. He was mad at me, and he had texted me and called me during those. Placed a number of calls during that time, none of which I returned because it was a police matter, and I wasn't about to engage with this person who was doing that. As soon as we finished that, I called the owner of the entire place and said, "Hey, Robbie, this is what happened today, and here's the people, and this person might contact you about renting or buying." And I said, "You know, you're the person who rents your upstairs room was like mad, right?" And as I put in the email to all of you, he's like, "I am so thankful for everything the city's doing. I'm thankful you took people through there. I'm thankful that that it might be a possibility." He's like struggled with that property. So he said, "Don't be concerned about the person who's renting it out upstairs. Like, you have my permission to walk through that space in the interest of economic development." So I think I've come to the end of that, and I guess hope I've answered most people's questions, and I hope that that this, well, I'll just say in the debate form, I hope this would lead people to think, here's some of the mistakes that the mayor made. Here's why. The mayor's like sickened and chagrined and apologizing for those mistakes. And if I was trying to take myself out of the setting and look down, and if I was just an observer without listing the contributions that I've made over the last year and 10 months to the city, would not warrant a vote of no confidence in nearly 2 years of mayorship. But that's my opinion, and I will respect the opinions of the rest of the council. So with that, in an odd turn of events, I will call on people to make comments and or ask questions. And maybe if someone like unmutes, then I can know they're talking. Councilor Carney.
Councilor Carney, I've been making a note of some questions while you answered, and I'd like to drill down a little bit further with some of them. My particular interest is the Super 8 motel, and I'm pleased that Councilor Morris put other things up there, but I really think the issue revolves around the Super 8, the issue of confidence. My first question is, did you investigate the WDO, the Woodburn Development Ordinances, before you contacted Deepan Patel at his hotel regarding the possibility of putting people in there other than hotel guests?
No.
No? Okay. Thank you. Mr. Mayor, have you ever had a conversation with Deepan Patel before you called him on April 6th?
Like I stated in one of our public meetings, and I believe you asked me a similar question then, it's possible he had a child when I was a middle school principal, but because that's a name of students we've had. But I would not have had any contact with him after his child graduated from middle school 15 years ago and the time I called about the voucher.
So we couldn't necessarily call him an acquaintance.
No.
Okay, very good. I'm particularly interested in the meeting that you held on May 27th that Councilor Cabrales attended with you. As you're probably aware, we have sworn testimony under penalty of perjury from Deborah Young, who's the Marion County Government Relations Manager. And,
Barbara,
pardon?
Barb Young.
Barbara Young. Yeah. And she has made certain allegations. And like I said, these allegations are under pain of perjury. It's a deposition, and it's in support of the Marion County counter to our legal case. And I might mention that Barbara Young's testimony in the deposition is backed up by her contemporaneous notes, which she is included as Exhibit A, Exhibit 1. So, and as you know, in that testimony, Barbara Young completely refutes your testimony, and she said specifically, and her notes verify. Mayor Swenson reports that he has contacted the Super 8. Mayor Swenson reports that he has at one time reserved the 3rd floor. Mayor Swenson suggests that Marion County HHS, Health and Human Services, reach out to Mr. Patel, operator of the Super 8, and talk to him about using it as a COVID isolation facility per the meeting that you were in that day. And the last point of that was Marion County Health and Human Services did so within a day or two, and they made the existing contract that's currently in force. So, given that Ms. Young has made that statement under penalty of perjury, what I'm interested in knowing is why did it take 20 days between the time you attended that meeting and the time that the city staff found out that the hotel was being pursued as an isolation facility? Why didn't you let somebody know about the outcome of that meeting? Because in fact, you were discussing policy at that meeting. 20 days.
Okay, well, point well made. I can repeat that in my recollection in that meeting, I'm not suggesting that the county have a isolation center in Woodburn. I can surely tell you that I had not reserved the 3rd floor, right? And so I would just differ with that. And I suppose in a legal case, like two people give testimony and like the judge decides which one is true. So that's that. And I guess I will go back to my answer. Why didn't I let somebody know at these meetings? And we can go back to May 27th, and I'm not sure when our next meeting was, but that was then a mistake. Like if I was the only one there and there wasn't city staff there, and I didn't say, hey, at this meeting, the people are still talking about places to isolate people, and I mentioned that that one of our hotels had a floor open, then that is a mistake I made, and that's a mistake I'm apologizing for.
Okay, I have a 4th question. And I think this question is for Councilor Cabrales. Councilor Cabrales, you attended that meeting with Mayor Swenson. Why was it that you didn't inform your council colleagues that policy was being discussed outside of the chambers of the city council, policy that affected all of us, and why didn't you let us know what was going on?
Which meeting are you talking about exactly?
May 27th, the one you attended with Teresa Alonso Leon, and you discussed the Super 8 motel and the fact that it could be used as a COVID facility. 20 days before we found out about it.
I don't recall being in that meeting, if I'm being honest with you. Was it for work, or what specific are you talking about?
No, you were in the meeting and you attended it alongside, you attended it with Mayor Swenson. And the interesting thing here is Councilor Cabrales, you're the counselor that the Super 8 Hotels ward. The Super 8 Hotel
Yeah.
is located in your
No,
ward.
but my question is what was the title of that meeting? And what was it? When was it? Was it in the evening? Was it during work hours? Because I need more specifics on that, because I don't remember being a part of any conversation that entailed the Super 8 Motel until after I found out, when it was brought to all of our attention.
Okay, it was the
When I got the phone call that Scott gave me.
North Marion County Action Team meeting.
Okay. That
Okay.
was during the day and it was for work. And I'm always invited to those meetings, but I don't always attend.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Yeah.
My last question from Mayor Swenson is, the thing I find most disturbing reading through all of this testimony is that it's become a legal issue. You've already admitted that you've disadvantaged the city by not identifying the email to Patel. But what I also find very disturbing is that you allowed the city to process a lawsuit against Marion County, knowing full well that this meeting on the 27th was the one that they used as a vehicle to set up the hotel. And you never let us know that this had occurred. And what you actually did was you permitted us to go ahead with that lawsuit. And we have to find out about this information from our opponents, not from you. And I find that's very, very disturbing. And that's not a question, that's a comment. So, but I'll tell you, that's what I find really disturbing about it. That and the 20-day lapse. You kept everybody completely uninformed about what was going on. And then we had to process our lawsuit with a minimum of information. That's the close of my commentary. Thank you.
I'll respond again with the response that I almost gave last time, and I'm still hesitant to respond to this based on the ongoing lawsuit. But let me just say that well, let me say this: the contact with the hotel was referenced back to April 4th, long before anybody was like thinking about an isolation center with prisoners, right? Was something that I had mentioned in not just that meeting, and maybe a few others, like as a point, like that was a point of interest. Like, here's a place that would be willing to take people who needed isolation, right? Not in the context of having one isolation center that's in the middle of Woodburn, being run by the county. That was like never in any of these conversations that we're referencing. That wasn't like, that wasn't a thing. That wasn't what I was understanding. That was like, this is that they were going to choose a place that was going to also have prisoners and like buy a whole hotel, right? And I think the other point is that one of the county commissioners who called let our city administration know, like, he said that as much on whatever date that was, back to your dates, right? So we knew that this was a thing that the county was going to use, right? So we knew that, right? Because and that phone call, when we heard about it, was, and everyone got that email, right? Everyone got the email that said, in addition, into the conversation with the county commissioner, he referenced that something about the mayor and was in contact or was part of this issue, right? That was something that we knew right from the very first phone call from that we had with the county commissioner. So I'm going to stop there because I'm being good at being prosecuted. I don't want to prosecute anybody else. Councillor Schaub has her mute off.
I do. Mayor Swenson, I was just, appalled at number one, even suggesting Super 8 since it is so close to 1,508 homes that, that are for 55 year olds, and also 7 nursing care facilities. And that's, I still don't know why you, as a resident of Woodburn, wouldn't see that and even go to that hotel and ask them. I mean, I went through 234 pages of this, and when I started reading this, I mean, I was just appalled. And I just wanted to make that comment about the Super 8. Okay, besides some of the other things, and I do agree with Councillor Carney, and also I appreciate the fact that Councillor Morris brought up some of the other issues that have been in the back of my mind. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Shub. And I understand being appalled if it looks like, and the county's made a good case for this, and that's what the county's lawyers are doing, right? They're making an excellent case for this. This is, as we've heard from our council, they threw everything they could and see what was going to stick. And so I appreciate that the county's is prosecuting the mayor for this, and I understand that someone running for mayor is doing the same thing. I understand that many of you are appalled as that as well. But I can tell you that connecting a phone call in April, long before any discussions were about centers, about finding a room for a person, is not the same as like asking them, hey, would you please, like that's, I mean, people may question my intelligence, but I'm not gonna, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna like call a hotel in the middle of Woodburn and all this stuff, because I want like prisoners to be there, and I want, or ex-prisoners, and I want like it full of things. I was looking for a room. So that's what I'll say to that. Councillor Cornwell.
I'm almost speechless, but my point is that why would you call them in the first place? And at every single meeting since our knowledge that it was going to be in Woodburn, or trying to be in Woodburn, you denied any culpability or any involvement whatsoever. You denied that you had anything to do with it. And then for us, lo and behold, to find out that yes, you did had a lot to do with it. You were like the kingpin. So my heart breaks over this, because this isn't what I don't think this is bringing us together at all as a council. I think it's dividing us in many regards, but we got to get to the truth. And whether or not your intentions were good or bad or other, you should have stepped forward and said, yes, I did this, because it would have set up a whole different scenario. And my point is honesty. My brother taught me a long time ago, if you get called on the carpet about something you did, just say, yes, I did it. I'll do better next time. I'm really sorry I screwed up. And I believe that you might think that way, but in this situation, you didn't use that out. You didn't feel like you had any involvement, or you wouldn't get caught. But here we are. So unfortunately.
Well, Councilor Cornwell, I appreciate that. And I, like I said, am like all of you that read through all of this. I was just as sickened, right? I was sickened that this line has, I mean, I was sickened that I participated in it, right? And whether it's a phone call for a voucher in early April, or it's a comment in a meeting that like, this is a place that would take people. So I'm sickened that became part of this. I'm sickened that that the county's excellent legal defense is connecting those two dots, right? As if they didn't have responsibility for contacting our city administrator and contacting anybody else, which is the bulk of our lawsuit, I would say, about this ahead of time. And I'm sick that the bus tracks going over me are like, I'll take all the bus tracks, right? But I'm sickened that the county, who's is like, that's the tack they're taking, right? And I'm like sickened, of course, that this is something that people here are like drawing those two connections, but I'm mostly sickened that people feel bad about it, right? And And I can only say that these are things that I thought were like public information that I believe I said in the council meetings when asked, like, yes, I had inquired to this hotel about that, and yes, I had mentioned it in a meeting. I had said that in my head. I'd said it over and over again. But if people didn't hear that, I completely apologize for being defensive. I apologize for being for the damage that this is if there's any legal ramifications, like I'm chagrined and sickened about that as well. Councilor Ellsworth.
All right, my turn to weigh in. So I'll be the first one to admit that I have stuck my foot in my mouth more times than I can count. And I've made mistakes in my career. And I'm saddened that we are in this position right now. I too read the entire document, went through everything. There were a couple parts of it that really made my heart drop, not the least of which was the transcript where you said the Motel 8 was offering the third floor up. What really concerns me, more so than the dates and the times and the who knew what when, was I'm finding myself asking about the motivation. And I know this isn't a secret. My question is that I have to come to the conclusion myself of is, are you that naive? Are you that inexperienced not to realize that as the mayor, you do carry a different weight when you make a conversation than the average person? Or was there a nefarious motive? I don't think that there was a nefarious motive. I do wonder, were you selectively remembering what you said, or were you really that naive? And as we're talking about a vote of confidence, it's very hard for me to say I have confidence in somebody that's that naive. And I really feel bad having to say that out loud. I don't think that this was something that you planned per se, but it does concern me that you didn't realize that you were treading some really difficult waters here. Like I said, I've stuck my foot in my mouth. I've had that bus go over me, back up and run me over again. I think you've waited a little bit long to stand up and say, yeah, that was me.
Right. I accept that, Councilor Ellsworth.
So we have a motion on the floor.
Oh, we have one
Well,
more.
I want to
council.
say something.
Yeah.
So, first off, Counselor Carney, next time you want to accuse me of something, please make sure. I don't like being accused of things, especially not when it's a situation like this. So I would really appreciate it if you kind of like gave me a phone call or an email and been like, hey, this is what's going on. Were you a part of this? Because I'm executive director of a small nonprofit here in Woodburn, and I attend a lot of meetings. Some of them, which actually I'm double booked, so I can't attend some. So yes, I do recall the North Marion. There's a whole bunch of North Marion meetings that I should be a part of, but I cannot because I'm running a nonprofit. So next time, and this is for everybody, if you want to accuse me of something, or if you have any questions, please feel free to call me or email me or text me, and I'd be more than happy to answer any questions you might have. So I hear what everyone is saying, and I've definitely, like how Councilor Ellsworth said, I've put my foot in my mouth plenty of times. I've dropped the ball plenty of times, and I've tried to go along and say I'm sorry and I apologize and everything. So I believe in second chances. I mean, I believe in this was a mistake, and let's think about all of the great things that the mayor has done. And so, I mean, so that's what I have to say. I think I don't believe that the mayor would actually put us let us go through a lawsuit just so this can happen. But we just need to think about all the great things that he has brought to the city. And yeah, that's my comment.
I have a comment directly at Councilor Cabrales. I think you need to open your eyes and realize that you were used. You were used cynically in that meeting. You were brought into that meeting because you were the counselor that happened to be the ward that the Super 8 motel was in. And you were cynically
No, Counselor Carney, no, because I am supposed to be a part of those meetings because I'm the executive director of a small nonprofit. So I have to be a part of those meetings because of the fact that I am the ED of a nonprofit that works directly with a vulnerable population, with a farm worker population. So yes, I'm supposed to be a part of those meetings, but it has nothing to do with the fact that I'm a counselor. It has everything to do with the fact that I'm the executive director of a small nonprofit, and my constituents and the people that I serve are my main priority. So the fact that you're saying that I was used is a slap in the face to me, and I don't appreciate that, and that's not okay. And I don't also appreciate all like this. We should have all been warned. You should have told the mayor that this was gonna happen, so he could have at least been prepared. And I don't appreciate me not knowing what's going on. This is not okay. No, I was not used, Councilor Carney.
You were identified on the notes as being a city councilor in Woodburn. You were identified on the contemporaneous notes in that meeting.
Mr. Mayor, can I wrap it up?
Well, I have one more question, and you can wrap up, and then I'll also wrap up. But I do want to return to this point of and maybe ask our city staff. And again, Bob, like lean in if it's not the right time. But when we received a call from the county commissioner who said who was making this case already, right, that the mayor was involved in this, and we spoke about that a number of times, like, and like this is where the I think on 2 different occasions with the city administrator, I'm not sure if Bob was there, probably not, seeing all this, that this was going to be a thing, right? And so maybe just help my recollection with that. Like, did we know that the county was going to link this call way back in April for a room and the mention of it in a meeting? Did we know that that was going to be part of the case?
What does that have to do with the price rise?
I'm not sure, Bob or our city administrator, even if it's
Well,
appropriate.
this
to answer
is
that.
Bob, and this is Bob, and like I said, I think I made this very clear, and I put it in my file note. You know, it was not at all clear to me. I mean, I had no idea that you talked to the owner of the Super 8, and had I known that, had we talked about that, had you opened the email, I mean, we would have responded to that. So absolutely, in terms of where I stand, I don't know about Scott, but I was not on any of those meetings. I mean, that's not really in my job description. And I was very surprised. And in fact, like I said, I was very forthright with you, Mr. Mayor. I was very surprised and I was very irritated that we had to defend this lawsuit with those allegations in it. So, I mean, categorically, no, I knew nothing about this until I read it.
Okay, thank you.
And if the question was to me, Mr. Mayor, I'm unclear if it was directed at me. I have a sworn statement that I've made, and I've made notes to the city attorney about sort of what I knew and when. You know, I was aware that the governor was wanting isolation centers for every county in the state of Oregon as part of the phase 2 reopening. I knew that Marion County had that in their plan. I knew that they were looking at potential sites in Salem. I didn't know that any of those sites included Woodburn until June 16th when the county called me. That's when I officially heard from the county. I've said this before. The weekend before, I think I saw a rumor or something on a social media post that alluded to something like this, and then that's when I notified staff and the city council, and kind of this is where we are now. So that's kind of what I knew.
Okay, well, I think Council Morris, you want to wrap it up, and then I'll make a statement and call for a vote.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Fellow councilors, thank you for your time this evening. And, you know, I want to say I'm sorry, because I was hoping that it wouldn't come to the point where we'd have to have this kind of a discussion. And if you'll take a look, and, you know, the mayor's kind of fuzzy on details sometimes. So if you go back and look at when I sent the email saying, hey, I want to vote a no confidence based on not only this legal case that we have going, but some of the stuff we talked about this evening, these different incidents that have just aggregated themselves over the past 5 months. And I'm just as much flawed as any other person on council and any person in life. And I'm willing to give people a second chance. But when you have conversations with a person and their actions don't change over time, and in my email on the 21st, I said very specifically, what's going to be the next thing that comes out of nowhere that we didn't know anything about, and we're like caught flat-footed again? That's my biggest concern. And so if you'll also notice, the mayor's referred several times to the fact that I'm running for mayor, and the mayor is finally running for mayor now too, which I think he filed like the 24th or the 25th. So when I sent that note and when I put this stuff up on social media, the mayor wasn't running for mayor at the time. So this isn't an election thing. It could be. I could have a massive amount of people watching this tonight because social media is very powerful, but I didn't want you to think that that's what this was about. This is about holding the mayor accountable for what he's out there doing kind of on his own. And if you go back through, and I'm sure everybody was carefully listening, he's just kind of doing his own thing, irrespective of the impact on the community. And if he was working closely with our city administrator and our city attorney and the other high level people that we have that we employ, the council employs, to go out and be, you know, in those meetings, then we wouldn't be where we're at now, in my opinion. I think it's also important to remember that, you know, city council and the mayor's office do not direct staff in any way, shape, or form. That's not our job. Our job is at that 10,000 foot level, setting the strategic direction for the city. And I think, as you recall, and I don't know how many of you can recall this or not, but most of the time the mayor has been worried over the past 5 or 6 months how we're going to look in the press. Of all things that we should be worrying about is how the press is going to cover what's going on in Woodburn. I mean, really, we should be focusing on what's best for the interests of the citizens of Woodburn, not how we look in the press. And I think it's also pretty easy to step back and see that the mayor has this issue of separating his office versus his personal. And especially when you're talking about, and I think one of the councilors brought it up tonight, when you go in somewhere, if you identify yourself as a city employee or a city elected official, that's who you are. And if you don't understand the impact of throwing around the fact that you're the mayor, I mean, I don't go out and say, hey, I'm a city councilor, so blah, 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 blah. I don't have that kind of interactions with people. But the mayor is obviously out there at the forefront. And if you can't disassociate that and understand the differences and the potential conflict of interest you're going to put yourself into, then that's either deceptive or naive. And I think that's either one's just as big of a concern for me. And I think ultimately, because I spent a lot of time kind of rebuilding what's been happening over the last 6 months, which I think most of us have tried to put it behind us because of just the way COVID has been. I mean, I'd like to get the last 6 months back, to be perfectly honest. But it's very obvious to me that the mayor is just careless with regards to his office, and that he's out there doing his thing, and irrespective of the consequences, and ultimately, like we see with this legal case, it catches up to you. And if you have multiple versions of the same thing multiple versions of your story in different meetings, then ultimately when somebody swears in a court affidavit, that's going to catch you up. And that's kind of what's happened here. But it's not just one thing. And I think that's the important thing for councilors to remember when we do this vote, is that it's not a one-time thing. It's been happening time after time after time. And that's what's the most disappointing thing. And the mayor and I talked about this. We met on Saturday, and I explained to the mayor, I said, hey, this has been going on for months. And it was just disappointing because I still don't think the mayor quite understands. Maybe tonight, and maybe that's the benefit from this no confidence vote, is that he will finally understand that, you know, his part of city government includes us being in the loop on these policy type of decisions and not just out there wheeling and dealing, kind of doing his own thing. Thank you for your time.
Okay, well, I keep trying to say I appreciate things, but I don't know if I appreciate all the images you throw out there, wheeling and dealing and doing his own thing. And I'm seeing where this is going, so I would love to, one, I would love to have like a heads up about this kind of thing. I felt like I was, you know, on a debate team that got here you handed the case.
Well, Mr. Mayor, I asked for this to be on the agenda at the next meeting, and this is the next meeting, so I think everybody was given a heads up about it, so.
All right, well, my assumption would be the next regular meeting. I saw the agenda for here, and so anyway, that's that. And I guess I would just say that I like understand the feelings and the thoughts that everyone's had around this, and the connections that you've all made. And I would and this connection between being, you know, naive and in some of these instances, that's true, right? The city administrator often says it takes you 1 to 2 years to figure this out. Like there were some things that I didn't figure out then, and I didn't make the connections to a call for a voucher for someone, and I didn't make the specifically the connection to in a meeting that I thought we had city staff there, or to bring that to our next meeting, whatever that was after May 27th, which second Tuesday in June, in the midst of all this. And this is not a night that anyone wants to go on and try to step back and look at the totality of the last 2 years of the mayorship. You may or may not agree with Councilor Morris's characterization of that. And if people feel compelled to take this vote to make that statement, like, I'm going to respect that. I would say that there is a vote of confidence or no confidence on November 3rd, that in my mind would be in a more appropriate place to have this out, and I'm sure it will. And in the end, if I'm being tried by Marion County's excellent lawyers, and I'm being tried by at the same time a jury of my peers, like I ran for mayor, and we're gonna be trying times. These are trying times, and I've tried in many fronts to serve this community by bringing people together, and the different events we've had, and and representing the city in public, which may or may not be of importance in this particular argument. But I would, as I Googled votes of no confidence in mayors, like, which I think that that in a different scenario, it's not going that way tonight, different scenario, like that's a body of, like, we're going to take this action. We're going to take an action, you know, whether it's land use action or whatever these kind of actions we would take. Like there would be like research about like how often does this happen? What the ones I Googled were somebody was under an FBI investigation. One in Oregon who like refused to follow the governor's orders. Like those were things to have a vote of no confidence in. And I would obviously don't want to have that be the result tonight, and would argue that that this is a thing that should have more deliberation, and should be take the totality of when you're voting for a no confidence in a mayor, that's in the midst of all the other division we have right now, that's I would think it would rise to a higher standard to take the drastic step of vote of no confidence over these two incidences that are pointed out here. And the other ones I believe that, that I've explained. But of course, that's my point of view. And so we can call the question. Heather, is this probably a roll call vote?
Before we vote,
Yes.
I have a question or two. First off, a vote of no confidence. What does that mean? Does that mean I don't have confidence in the mayor, but he's seated? Does it mean we think he should be voted out? What does a vote of no confidence actually mean so that everybody knows? We've all Googled it, but I want to know before I vote either way, what does that mean? And somebody give me an idea of exactly what I'm voting for.
May I have the opportunity?
Councilor Carney.
Absolutely.
Councilor Ellsworth, my understanding of a vote of no confidence is that the mayor and the council continue to work together as they normally did in the past. However, the council has articulated the fact that they no longer have confidence in the mayor in his role as mayor, but they will continue to work with him as an elected official.
Is that everybody else's understanding of the vote before us or the motion before us?
At the risk of repeating myself, I don't want to do that, but I think probably since you asked the question, Councilor Ellsworth, this is Bob. As I said before, I think Councilor Carney, the Councilor President, had it correct in terms of it's basically a determination by the council as a body, as a group, about confidence in the mayor. And that sounds redundant. I mean, it sort of is, but I mean, it's a standard set by the council. It's not a legal determination. I mean, there's not a legal standard to meet. It's a standard based upon your discussion and what you believe and what you've talked about tonight. I mean, that would be that. And to answer one question I can't answer directly, you ask a question, does it affect the mayor's role in terms of serving in office? And the answer to that legally is categorically no, it doesn't. The mayor would continue serving. So that part is legal. The rest is all legal. But I mean, in terms of a legal question, that part is a legal question. The rest of it is not a legal question. It's a question for the council.
Okay. So my second portion, and I will turn it back over to whomever, is I agree with the mayor that the actual vote of confidence or no confidence will be held November 3rd. And I really hope that the city of Woodburn looks at all the issues, looks at both candidates or any other candidates, and makes their own decision at that time. But thank you very much, Councilor Carney, for your explanation. That was clear and concise. Now I understand exactly what I'm going to be voting for one way or the other.
Any other questions about the meaning of this?
I would have a question for Councilor Schaub.
Yes.
Councilor Schaub, is it your understanding that a yes vote is a vote of no confidence in the mayor, and a no vote is a vote of confidence in the mayor?
A yes vote to me is no confidence.
That's how I understand it.
Is that, excuse me, I'm sorry, point of order, and is that the recorder's understanding? Because that's a very good question, Council President. I think that was my understanding also, but we have to make sure on an issue like this that it's correctly recorded. So it would seem like a yes vote would be a vote of no confidence, a no vote would be that you disagree and that you do have confidence. Is that correct? Does the city recorder have a different understanding?
Yes. No, that's how I understand it.
Okay. And my last word on my understanding of no confidence, and again, I would have loved to have time to prepare, like to see one of the last 10 mayors have had votes of no confidence in the United States and to present that case so you could like balance that with the fellow who's under FBI investigation and the person who like disobeyed governor's orders and whatever else is out there. But there's no time for that. I guess I would just say that no confidence would be none. Like if you're voting for no confidence in me, you're saying like, I don't have any confidence. Like no is like none. And I will leave this to each to your own conscious and as again, carry on as your next mayor or not your next mayor. Most of me that I malice for none is part of my thing, and I work hard to not hold anything against anyone else. But that would be my question, is if you have like absolutely no confidence in this mayor, then vote no. If you have some confidence in the mayor or partial confidence in the mayor, half
maybe.
confidence, that's not no confidence. All right,
I-
that's
and
my
I think-
final statement.
I
I
think
have a comment.
Please,
I-
Councilor Cornwell.
I don't think that's appropriate that you're saying that about yourself, because I still have confidence in you completely in many regards. I'm just not happy with how things are going right now. And so that's whereas I would consider another idea. But for you to say it's black and white, it really isn't, because we are still going to work with you and keep you on as the mayor. So it's kind of like you're lobbying and making it really black and white, like my son might do to me. If you don't do this, then you must not love me. So
Okay. I'm
I
sorry.
don't,
I don't want to be like, I have a teenage son at home too, so I'm sorry for that.
yeah, but that's what you're making me feel like. And that's a very, as an empath, that's a very emotional thing for you to be saying. And you're questioning, will this breach, break our friendships and break, and I don't believe it should. We're just hopefully guiding you as not so much as a parent, but just as a co-worker to maybe, I don't know, but it's just what you're saying isn't appropriate, I believe.
Okay. So I appreciate that. And I was just trying to clarify what no confidence meant. And I would not trying to put people, but I'm like, what the question is, what does no confidence mean? Does it mean like absolutely no confidence? Or does it mean, and I think that was the question that Councilor Ellsworth was.
There's no real black and white. It has many angles, many approaches. My concern is you're failing to carry out certain obligations or making decisions that other members feel are detrimental. That's one regard is of what we've discussed here. It's not so much as you're doing crazy things and going out and hurting others directly on purpose. It's just that some of your choices haven't been entirely appropriate.
Yeah. And I agree to those again, Mary Beth, and
I know.
Well, I think my last comment would be that,
and I think I'm almost finished answering her comment, is that, yeah, so I apologize for like drawing those lines, and I pride myself on not being emotional and getting to that. Like, this is kind of a thing that's going to resonate, with all the people I know and my family. And I mean, it's a thing that I'm going to take responsibility for if it works out that way. But I really was just trying to clarify what the no confidence means. And so I'm not trying to put anybody in a spot and I am sincere. Like, we've known each other for a long time, and however you vote tonight, like I think you know me. I'm sincere that that's not going to affect our working or other kind of relationship. So believe me with that.
I'd make one final comment back to Councilor Ellsworth. You're right, the election is coming up in November, but that's 60 some odd days away. And these last 2 months of decisions that are made by the mayor, I want to make sure that he understands what the expectation is from the council, that there is transparency, and that not only the relationship he's making out in the public, but also the relationship with the council, which I think may be part of the issue why we ultimately ended up here tonight. That's all I have.
All right.
Question.
In a turn of events that I did not anticipate, I will now call for the motion, and we'll do a roll call vote.
Counselor Morris,
Yes.
Counselor Ellsworth,
Yes.
Counselor Cabrales,
No.
Counselor Carney,
Yes.
Counselor Schaub,
Yes.
Counselor Cornwell,
Yes.
All right. Motion carries. The next question, is anybody really interested in the utility service ordinance? And
Can I make
if-
a motion that we postpone the rest of this meeting, this work session until another date? As this particular beginning was a little bit difficult for all of us.
Mr.
Yeah,
Mayor,
I
we're
just-
happy. We can roll out the presentations again at the next opportunity for the city council.
Yeah, I'm not sure if these things on the work session were of any immediate importance for the next 2 weeks anyway, so.
I would like to thank some of our consultants, I think have hung on for this meeting, probably not what they expected for a meeting, but appreciate them hanging on.
Okay,
I thank everyone for listening as well, and I apologize to the presenters, but I felt that this was very important. And I agree with Councillor Ellsworth that let's, close this meeting now. Who's ever wants to make that.
Administrator, are you willing to forego your report as well?
Absolutely.
Move we adjourn.
Second,
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Please have a nice evening.
thank you.
Thank you.
This was a difficult meeting, everybody.
Oh,
Thank you
terrible.
all.
Thanks. Thank you very much. I appreciate everybody weighing in. It was very, very